Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I'm Braden. This is Langley Outdoors Academy, and thank you for stopping by. Alright guys, we are doing work. We're coming up on 6 months of this situation that we've been focusing on to protect our rights, especially the Second Amendment version of those said rights. We're doing amazing work, guys, and I know this is going to be a long battle. It's going to be a long fight. First stop is 2022, but don't stop focusing because we're making an amazing impact. If you look around, and I'm going to do a video on roughly around June 1st, kind of a half-year update, gun rights are growing substantially better than I thought they would be, and it's because of you guys, so don't you give up because we're doing amazing work together. So today what we're going to talk about is exactly what the left is identifying as a problem. I've touched on it. I've done a video about a month ago about something called preemption. Now, just to catch up real high level before we go into the NYU research or paper or article that they put out, preemption is essentially that a local or a city ordinance can't issue gun control that supersedes state law. Okay? If it conflicts with state law that they're in, they can't do it. That's the idea. And it's stymied gun control across the board in pretty much almost all states. There's 40 states nationwide that have some form of preemption, which gets in the way of gun control, which is why they're targeting it. Now, this article I'm going to touch on, as always, is linked in the description box below. But there's two things that I want to bring for you guys, because this is where we need to stay on the fight, because this is what the left does. They change definitions in order to fit and suit their needs. That's one thing that they do. And then they come after the existing laws as written that they don't like. Now, both of these things happened in this article. So, without much further ado, let's get right into it, because we're going far left think tank, New York University. Alright, so the article that we're referencing is states' laws limit local control over guns and favor gun rights. Well, we knew that on this channel because that's something that the NRA really lobbied for about 20 to 15 years ago. Big move, right? But the left knows it, and they're starting to rally energy against it. The case in point right now, it's actually up in the Denver state legislature. It's actually being debated if they're going to remove preemption, and we're going to stay following it, but that's a big one. Now, here's the part where they start changing definitions to suit their needs. Gun violence is a substantial public health problem in the U.S., killing more than 38,000 people each year. The federal government has enacted few measures to reduce gun violence, leaving the policy debates centered on state and local action. Now, they did two things in this quote. The first thing was something we talked about last night and the night before. They are going hard after the gun violence is a public health issue, because you can regulate public health. Watch the video from last night to actually go a little bit more in depth on that. They're trying to change the definition of gun violence. It's not crime, it's not anything, it's a public health issue because they can control it easier when it's a public health issue. You guys have heard them say it's the epidemic of gun violence. They're conditioning everyone. They're starting to do this epidemic of gun violence, and then it becomes a disease. It becomes public health, and that's what they're doing with this. And don't take it to the bank. That's what they're doing. In fact, they're going into the infrastructure bill with the same thing, public works and public health. We touched on it last night. But the second thing here is the federal government has enacted few measures to reduce gun violence. Okay, they're leaving it at the state level. Well, the state level is a little bit more in tune, and it's localized to the individual population. It makes a little bit more sense to be on a state level. Now, preemption prevents them from basically violating the state level laws, which is getting in their way, and that's why they're hitting on this stuff, because they're bringing attention to it. They're bringing their guns to bear. Trust me. All right. School of Global Public Health and the study's lead author. Cities have been trying to pass their own laws to protect their residents from gun violence, including Boulder, the site of a tragic mass shooting in March, only to be thwarted by state governments because of preemption. All right, so now let's keep on trucking. The firearm industry has helped to create a national framework that almost universally blocks local gun control measures, and in some cases even punishes local officials for engaging in the democratic process to address the needs of their communities. Now, what they did there was they basically said, oh, you're being punitive because you're penalizing the democratic process. No, they're penalizing someone who would conflict with state law, which happens to coincide with a natural right imbued in the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment. They're framing it from a perspective of, oh, you're interfering with democracy, our precious democracy. This isn't good for our democracy. You're lying. That's what you're doing. But that's what's happening right now. They're starting to shift it. They're changing all definitions. Now, if we keep on going, they're going to keep on amping up the pressure. The firearm industry was one of the first to use preemption as a tool to block public health policymaking in local areas where enacting measures would have been politically feasible, i.e., New York City, i.e. California, i.e. Pittsburgh or Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's a good example. These places can't do what they want to do because of these laws. And that's obviously the point I'm driving home real hard, right? The state's use of preemption, a legal mechanism in which a higher level of government overrides or limits the authority of a lower level to act on a specific issue, overwhelmingly support policies favoring gun rights. Now that is 100% true. They're not lying, but they're highlighting it. Interestingly enough, preemption also applies to other types of companies as well. Drug manufacturers, that's another one. There's lots of different industries that fall under preemption. They just don't touch on it. So they're starting to turn the battleship, and this is where they're going to hit next. They're going to hit health for the infrastructure bill, and they're going to hit preemption. That's what they're doing. And like I said, Colorado, that's the first test run. Now, this is interesting. However, the vast majority of states, nearly 40, fell into the third category of having preemptive measures over almost all gun policies without enacting substantive gun control measures. Yeah, they do. The whole point, guys, is the NRA did a lot of work, to their credit, to get these rules in place, to get these laws passed in state legislatures a while ago, 15 to 20 years. We got that line held really strong on the state and local level, and we are trying to reinforce it. So that's why I'm doing this video. When you guys are going up for your state legislatures, when you're going up for your state house and state senate, this is where it matters. The state level, the left, specifically the left on gun control, is losing severely. The federal level, they're trying really hard, but they can't get it passed. The state level is where it's making all the impact. If you want more proof of this, you can look at all of the different states that have passed pro-gun legislation since in the last 6 months. That's a big deal, because keep in mind, guys, right now, they have the federal House, the federal Senate, and the White House. That is a big deal, but in that time, they passed no bills on a federal level. They are taking up gun rights cases in the Supreme Court 2 this year. Well, one was technically the 4th, the search and seizure, but it had to do with the Second Amendment. And now in October or November, they're gonna do one on the concealed carry if you have the right to carry in a public place, which is kind of a no-brainer. This is moving in the right direction, and I want you guys to be energized, because this is the line. This is where they're gonna go next. And you and I working together, we put the right people in place, we hold their feet to the fire, because we're gonna do it, and we can get our goals done, and the blessing of the Second Amendment will be passed along. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below this video, and until tomorrow, I'm Braden. See you later.